It's just hair. It's just a style. But when people want to reinvent themselves, what's the first thing that they do? They change their hair. They cut it, they dye it, they restyle it, whatever. Your hair is a part of your personal identity. And when it comes to Black hair, it's a part of a very rich cultural and historical identity. So, Black hair requires a lot of maintenance because of its kinky and coily texture. It is very easy for it to get tangled and knotted. But constant detangling of the hair can cause the follicle to break. On the other hand, if you don't detangle the hair, it can become matted, and that can also cause breakage in the hair. Cornrows function as a protective style, keeping the hair neat and unknotted. Cornrows has a functional purpose in the maintenance of Black hair, but it's also an art form that has a rich and cultural background behind it. The way that different tribes across Africa wore their braids served as an indicator of the culture and region that they were from. During the transatlantic slave trade, millions of Africans were brutally ripped from their homes, and their heads were shaved as a means of taking away their culture and identity. Wearing cornrows during slavery became a sort of act of rebellion and a resistance, as well as a way to keep their heritage close to them. At one point, women used cornrows to create maps and send secret messages. Women would also use cornrows to hide seeds and use them as decoration in their hair. These seeds were used as a way for liberated slaves to grow their own crop and avoid famine. When slavery was abolished in 1865, Black people sort of separated themselves from their hair and the rich culture behind it. This was a response to self-hate that Black people felt against themselves, their hair, their skin, and their features. You see a lot of Black people wearing their hair heat pressed in the late 1800s and into the 1900s. In the early 1900s, the relaxer was invented by a Black inventor and introduced into the Black community. After that, you see Black men and women wearing their hair straight as a rebellion against their own skin and hair. The Black Power movement started in the 1960s because there was so much more pride and understanding behind being Black. And you suddenly see Black people wearing their hair natural again and no longer trying to assimilate to white America. Wearing natural hair quickly became a part of the Civil Rights Movement. Though the Civil Rights Act of 1964 ended segregation in public places and banned employment discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, or sex, there was still a lot of pressure put on Blacks in workplaces and school to reject their natural hair. Till this day, Black children are being put out of school, and Black women are being fired from their jobs for wearing natural hairstyles such as braids, locks, and afros, being told that it is untidy and distracting. In the late 1980s and the beginning of the 1990s, braids made a big comeback. And as hip-hop began to excel to the mainstream audience in the 1990s and reached its peak in the early 2000s, Black culture became more trendy and so did Black hair. People began monetizing off of cornrows, and you can see it appear in high fashion runways as a cool new urban look. All the while, white America still hasn't fully accepted Black hair on Black people.
There's a girl in my grade who has beautiful, beautiful natural curls, and we had the okay to wear natural hair. And then the dean of students came up to her and said, you have to do something about your hair. You have to either cut it, chemically straighten it, or put it in cornrows every day.
I came into school and I guess a teacher pointed me out and they called me down to the office. And I tried to explain stuff to them and tried to explain why I would do protective styling, but of course they didn't understand. So I'd be explaining, basically to tears. I was so frustrated, and they'd be like, oh, we've done our research, and based on the research that we've done, it doesn't seem that you need braids.
So, why am I saying all this? Next time you think to say that it's just hair, it's just a style, just don't.